SMESouk Podcast, brought to you by Rackbank Business. Your business matters.
SMEs are the lifeline of UAE's economy. Whether it's a grocery store in Abu Dhabi, a thriving online business in Dubai, or a manufacturer on the hills of Ras Al Khaimah, you keep all the 7 Emirates on the move. We proudly present you Rackbank SMESouk Podcast series.
Hey, you're listening to the SMESouk Podcast series. I'm Brandy Scott, and for this episode, we're going to look at the realities and the challenges of running a technology-based SME here in the UAE. I'm joined by Nick Watson. He's the CEO of car sharing business Udrive. Nick, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by talking about the ethos of Udrive. When it was set up, what problem were you trying to fix? What gap were you trying to fill?
Actually, our own gap. So we used to run a normal rent-a-car company. People would call up and they would then go through the paper process, and then you'd have to deliver the car or they'd come to you. We thought there's got to be a better way to do this to make it more efficient for us and also for the customer. And on a global scale, there were a lot of innovations in car rental where you could rent the car on the street with a mobile phone. And once you register, you can drive anything you want. So we said, well, it's the next incarnation of Udrive. Let's do it. Let's make that happen. And that's how we started.
So talk me through your business model. Tell me what you guys do differently.
What we do is we take any car, any vehicle, we digitize it by putting a little IoT device in the car, allows us to talk to the car and receive information from the car. And once we do that, we can do anything we want. We can put the car on the street, you can rent it for your mobile phone, you can drive from one location to another and end your rental so you don't have to bring it back to where you took it from. You start to learn how operations work, where to put the cars, where the customers go from, where they go to, and where the hotspots are. And this allows you to then grow your customer base in the areas where the cars are. So that's how you scale. And then you do the same thing in each city. You just repeat, rinse and repeat into every city, and you go horizontally across the GCC.
What does that mean for your capital needs?
That means we need access to vehicles, first and foremost. 2, we don't buy the vehicles, we lease them and we sublease them. So we take a 2 or 3 year lease from a large company like Avis or LeasePlan, and we fractionalize it down to 1 minute and 1 meter. So we take all the responsibility away from the customer of having this fixed contract, and we make it available to you by the minute. That's what we do. That's the simplicity of the model.
But what does the model look like at the back end for you? For other SMEs listening here, tell me what that has meant in terms of the startup capital that you needed and what kind of ongoing capital you need and cash flow on a daily and weekly basis.
We self-funded for the first 3 years. Once we got to scale, we thought now's the time to go out and get external capital, prove the model works. We've got lots of customers, lots of revenue, and we went and raised capital. And this was during 2020. Then COVID came. So we restarted the mission to raise at the end of 2020. And that's when we first got our external capital coming into the company.
Which is about when you took over as CEO. What did COVID mean for a car sharing company? Sharing in general, Nick?
The sharing wasn't the problem. It was the fact that COVID meant everybody was stuck at home. So there was no need to mobilize. There was no need to go across the city. And so that basically stopped the business from operating for 3 months. I think it was. We had the sanitization in the UAE. As soon as we were allowed back on the streets, the business came back instantaneously. So customer base was not the issue. Sharing was not the issue. There were people's concerns, but we clean our cars. We're very thorough with cleaning, sanitizing, all those elements you need in a good experience. But with COVID, we upped the game and we put sterilizer bottles in the car, and we did everything we could to give people safety.
Did you find that the way people were moving and how and when they needed cars with more people working from home, etc., changed?
Yeah. It's definitely changed before COVID and post-COVID. The demand hasn't changed, but customers don't take the same trip every day. So maybe they do 2 days work from home. So that means another customer can take the car on the day they're working from home. There's enough people in the market for the number of cars we have. In fact, we have too many customers and not enough cars. And that's why we're in a growth phase at the moment. The key for us, though, is to prioritize on where to put the cars based on when you need the car, not when we think you need the car.
So how do you solve that very nice problem to have? Too many customers, not enough cars. What's your plan?
Secure as many vehicles as possible. Work with banking partners to get financing for vehicles. Because we've matured now, we don't want to keep giving away too much money to leasing partners. We also want to own the vehicles as well, so we can take vehicle groupings that we want for our customers. And of course, hiring good talent that can help us grow the business, because in the end, having the idea is one thing, scaling it is definitely the hardest part of any business when you grow.
Okay, well, let's break that down for any small businesses or would-be small businesses who are listening, what they can learn from your experience. First off, that banking relationship. What do you actually need from a bank?
As we were self-funded from the very beginning, up until raising capital, we needed a place to put the money that the customers were spending with us, right? So we have a payment processing partner, Payfort, and they process the payments into RackBank. RackBank then sits there and we spend the money when we get the money from the customer to pay for petrol, parking, insurance, pay for the leases on the cars. So in the end, no matter what you do, if you're an online business and you're taking payments via credit card or debit, you need a banking partner. So of course, you need somewhere for the money to be held.
What's the difference between having a banking partner that's helping you and a banking partner that's hindering you?
Efficiency in communication and getting things done when you need it done. So like, for example, if you go to your bank account and you can't withdraw money, that's pretty much a big hindrance. I think banks at the base fundamental is once you've got the account, it's about can you get access to your money and how easy is it to get access to the money and how easy is it to send the money somewhere else.
So as you do scale up, what do you need from a banking partner now? What do you need them to be able to do for you so that you can do what you need to do next?
Yeah, so look, once you reach scale, if you're raising capital, then the investor's money comes into the bank account and that's used to grow the business, hire talent, invest in technology. From a daily cash flow business, you might need access to vehicle financing or you might need access to business loans where you can take that capital and invest in something where you're planning for the future and then that revenue will come in the future. There's a lot of things that debt can provide to a bigger than small company, so SME component. So as you scale, you need access to more capital that can give you proactive investment strategies.
Let's talk the other challenges with growth, finding people. You talked about hiring. What comes with that?
A lot of work. Look, if you find the right person in the first place, then your life becomes easier. If you find the wrong person, your life becomes harder. So in the end, if you're going to recruit and you're going to recruit at a senior level, it's very important to vet the people you're hiring and make sure they meet your company culture. Because in the end, if they're talented but the culture doesn't match, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. And in this region, you've got an influx of a lot of nationalities. So you have to make sure that culturally they're aligned to your business, to your revenue, to your thinking. And we have every nationality under the sun working for Udrive at the moment. It's important that they have the values that the company has.
Have we got enough people who have worked for tech startups, small growing tech companies, that you can find the talent that you need locally who's got that experience? Or are you having to look outside?
It's getting better. You do have to look outside. You have a lot more talent here now than we had when we started Udrive, especially when it comes to scale experience in the technology sector. Kareem has done an amazing job of creating opportunity. Amazon has done the same thing, or SMESouk has done the same thing. So there's a lot of offshoot employees now who are coming into the market that have done what they needed to do and now they want to be part of something from the very beginning or from a very early stage.
What about corporate tax? We've now obviously got people doing the accounting for the first corporate tax here in the UAE. What does it mean for you?
When you get to profitability, that's when corporate tax becomes something you have to worry about. Prior to that, there is no profit, so there's no tax. There's VAT, which everybody's being prepped for and works with in all their actions in the UAE at the moment. But for us, we're very excited about corporate tax because that means we met a major milestone that every SME or startup takes, which is hitting profitability. We're very close to it. So we're very excited to hit that milestone and contribute to the economy.
Are you putting the systems that you need in place now to deal with it?
We have a very strong financial team anyway. We have a very mature CFO. We have a very mature finance team. So we're prepared anyway because we're audited for all our investors. So we're technologically ready. We're ready to hit profitability. We're ready.
So let's look at what is next for you guys. How big does Udrive actually want to get?
So our plan right now is to reach 6,000 cars in the next couple of years. And we're going to do that by horizontally scaling. So you take the model we have here in the UAE, which is per minute, daily, weekly and monthly rentals, and you just scale that into other cities. We've done that across the UAE. We've done it in Saudi Arabia. We just launched Alula. We're in Medina. We have some very cool cars coming online, hopefully by the end of Q4, which will completely change the direction of what people perceive as Udrive.
What's a cool car, Nick?
A little bit secret right now, but it's going to be coming out in the next couple of months, and we'll definitely follow up with another episode.
Are we talking more electric vehicles then?
We are talking very electric.
Do the cities differ? Do you cut and paste the same business model exactly every time? I mean, you talk about going into Alula there.
Yeah, you can't cut and paste every city because if you take the UAE, for example, and you take Dubai, Dubai is what we call a line-based city. You have major arteries, Sheikh Zayed, all those types of roads, Emirates Road, and then you have buildings that follow those lines. So if you look at our mobility in the city, everybody goes from one side of the city to the other side. In Abu Dhabi, it's a grid-based city. Like New York, you have lots of squares and grids and roads going all over, and the same is for Riyadh. Dubai is very vertical. Riyadh is very horizontal. You can cookie cutter the technology, the way the customer experience happens, but you can't cookie cut the way people drive. That's one thing for sure. And you can't cookie cut the where they go across the city and how they get around that city. Because in Dubai, technically, you can go from one side of the city in 30 minutes to the other side. But in Riyadh, you could not do that.
What does all of the generative AI that we're hearing about at the moment mean for you? As a tech company, how are you employing it?
Very carefully, because we're very concerned about the customer experience. So for us, while we are testing AI as the language is being used in the world right now, the thing we focus more on is machine learning, because with machine learning, we can use those tools to help us understand where the cars are, where they should be, which customers are more likely to need the car tomorrow morning versus needing it the next day. So this is key for us at the moment. This is what we invest a lot of our funding into at the moment. And then AI will come later on. You know, for example, when you call up the call center and you want to know about Udrive, you don't need a human to tell you, hey, just download the app and then go through the registration process. From an AI and ML combined perspective, we're the only car rental company in the entire GCC that has an onboarding process of 2 minutes. And then you can rent the car straight away that's in front of you. So we're the only ones who have it right now.
Okay, well, let's look at what other SMEs listening this morning, or would-be SMEs, can learn from your experience. On the tech side, for example, is there anything that you would do differently looking back now?
Invest more in the tech at the very early days. So to be honest, the first 2 years of Udrive, 2 to 3 years, we were an operator. We used technology to digitize the cars, but we were really an operator. We knew where to put the cars, we knew how to clean the cars, we knew how to give a good customer experience. But we were not a technology company. And there's a different ethos between being an operations company and a technology company. For us, we've now become a technology company, and operations is a key barrier to entry for everybody else to get into our industry, because if you clean one car, it's easy. You clean 1,000 cars, that's hard. And that needs experience, and it needs management tools and technology to help you coordinate the troops, let's call it that way.
What about on the fundraising side? What have you learnt through your rounds of fundraising that other companies can benefit from?
The advice would be start earlier. We self-funded the business to start with. That was a good thing because it kept ownership, but it was a bad thing in the fact that our network did not grow in the investor space. And in this region, mainly the Middle East, but the GCC, there's a limited amount of capital available for startups. It's a maturing industry. It's quite mature now in the seed investments and the Series A, but post that, it doesn't exist. So the problem is if you don't get the right people in at the very beginning of your company to help guide you and give you access to network for raising capital, then you're all on your own, which is technically what happened to us. So in 2020, it was bad timing, of course, with COVID. But when we went to raise money, we were on our own. Not necessarily a bad thing if you can sell and you can pitch and you can make phone calls, but it's not as easy. There's nobody else in the background cheering you on and waving the flags and saying, hey, you should invest in Udrive. And in this region, you know, it's all about communities and the network effects.
How much is that soft stuff important as compared to, I mean, you've spoken an awful lot about the strategy and algorithms for, you know, car on this street, car on that street. But I also hear a certain warmth in your voice when you're talking about the people side of things. Yeah. Do we underestimate that sometimes when we're putting a business plan together?
Yeah, because it's easy to do a business plan. It's a piece of paper and words, and it's in your brain, so it's so easy to just imagine. But when you execute, it's the hard part. And if you don't have the right people, and you don't have the right support infrastructure, whether that's internal to the company or external, through advisors and network effects, life becomes a lot easier as you get bigger and you outgrow your own capacity. That's the problem you have. When you're on your own, it's just you. But as you get bigger, it's you and others. And whether you have others there or not is the problem.
How do the problems change? Higher class problems, hopefully, but how are those problems different?
You can't answer the questions you ask yourself. And that's the problem. You get worried then, oh my, I'm not going to be able to do this. Or how do I do this? And then people start worrying about how they're going to get from here to here. That's where the problems start. And then you start doubting yourself. I'm not saying that's what I did. Of course not. But the key part here is that if you've got people who are shepherding you in the same direction, the reality is, even if you don't know, you're still going to go for it because you believe that that support infrastructure is going to be there for you. That's what tenacity and grit and all these elements of personalities need. If you don't have it, then you need people who do have it to push you in the right direction.
And for those who are right at the beginning of the journey, for those who the problems of scaling up is something they're really looking forward to in the future. From day one, as someone who's been involved with a number of new companies out here, what advice would you give to the absolute newbies?
You can't do it all on your own, but this is the easy thing to say. 2, surround yourself with people that bring you up and not down. And 2, start soft talking to people that you think could put money into your business, whether you need it or not. It's as simple as that. One day you might need it, but it's better to know it's there than not actually know it's there. And that's one of the key things most startups make a mistake on.
Nick Watson is the CEO of Udrive. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
You've been listening to the SMESouk Podcast series with me, Brandy Scott, and today, Nick Watson, the CEO of Udrive, having a look at the challenges and the opportunities that face technology-based SMEs here in the UAE.
SMESouk Podcast, brought to you by RACBank Business. Your business matters.